The Hall of Resonance was built to make visitors feel small. Isaac Carter realized that within 3 seconds of walking inside it, and he did not like it at all. The ceiling stretched so high above him that it looked like another sky. Soft light flowed across the dome in silver waves. Tall crystal pillars spiraled upward like frozen lightning. Symbols glowed along their surfaces, recording every word spoken inside the royal court. Between the pillars floated thin platforms of dark stone. They hovered a few inches above the ground, held in place by quiet gravity fields. The entire hall looked beautiful. It also felt terrifying. Isaac wiped his sweaty hands on his diplomatic gloves. "Breathe," he whispered to himself. His translator drone floated beside his shoulder and immediately repeated the word in perfect Elindrian. "Respiratory function advised." Several nobles turned their heads. Isaac closed his eyes. "Thank you," he muttered quietly. At the far end of the hall stood the throne of Elindra. Queen Saras sat upon it. The throne floated inside a ring of silver light. It did not touch the platform beneath it. The queen herself looked almost human, but only at first glance. Her ears were long and curved slightly backward. Thin metal threads shimmered through her dark braided hair like tiny stars. Her face was calm and perfect, almost like a sculpture. Only her eyes showed emotion. They were pale and glowing softly, like moonlight through water. Beside her stood Princess Nera. Isaac had heard many warnings about the princess that morning. Do not approach her suddenly. Do not speak to her unless she speaks first. Do not attempt physical contact. Now he understood why. The girl stood completely still beside her mother. She was small, dressed in a pale ceremonial tunic that glowed faintly when she moved, but she barely moved at all. Her gaze looked distant. Not bored. Not curious. Just distant. Like she was watching something far away that nobody else could see. Isaac swallowed. A child should not be that quiet. He forced himself to focus on his work. This was just a scientific presentation. A very important one. But still a presentation. The royal herald struck the floor with a glowing staff. The sound echoed across the hall. Queen Saras spoke. "Dr. Isaac Carter of Earth," she said calmly. "You were invited to Elindra to present your research on emotional interaction between species." Her voice carried easily across the chamber. "You may begin." Isaac bowed. "Your Majesty," he said. He activated the data prism in his hand. Light unfolded into floating images. Neural maps. Energy patterns. Comparisons between human brains and Elindrian neural systems. Several scholars leaned forward with interest. "Good. Scientists were easier than politicians. My research studies how intelligent species recover from emotional trauma," Isaac said. The projections rotated slowly. Humans are not an empathic species. We cannot directly feel the emotions of others the way Elindrians can. He gestured toward the images. But humans produce many signals tied to emotions, heart rhythm changes, vocal tone shifts, body temperature, small facial movements. He paused. For empathic species, these signals may feel very loud. A few scholars nodded thoughtfully. Isaac smiled slightly. "In simple terms," he said, "standing near a human might feel less like reading a closed book, and more like someone shouting their diary at you." Soft laughter moved through the scholars. Even the Queen's expression shifted slightly. Encouraged, Isaac continued. "After trauma, empathic species may isolate themselves emotionally," he explained. "But unfamiliar emotional signals might break that pattern." He pointed to the human neural model. Humans are messy emotionally. Chaotic. Loud. Another ripple of quiet laughter spread. Then Isaac made a mistake. He tried one more joke. "Of course," he said, "further research is needed. Preferably research that does not involve humans bringing casseroles to diplomatic meetings." His translator paused. The drone spoke again. "Closest cultural translation. Ceremonial grief pudding." The entire court froze. Isaac stared at the drone. "That is not the same thing." Then something moved. Princess Nera stepped forward. The reaction was immediate. Guards straightened. Ministers inhaled sharply. Queen Sarah's did not move at all. Nera walked slowly across the chamber. Her eyes were no longer distant. Now they were focused. Curious. She stopped directly in front of Isaac. He lowered the projection slowly. The princess stared at him. Then she suddenly wrapped her arms around him. The court went completely silent. Isaac stopped breathing. An alien princess was hugging him. Her arms were wrapped tightly around his waist, her head resting against his chest. His translator drone had stopped spinning. Several guards had gripped their energy spears. The human brain projection was still rotating above the princess's head. Isaac cleared his throat carefully. "Hello," he said. The drone translated it perfectly. Nera did not let go. If anything, she hugged him tighter. Queen Sarah slowly stood from her throne. Her voice was calm. "Nera," she said gently. "Release him." The princess did not move. "I like him," she said simply. The translator repeated the words for the entire court. Isaac raised one hand awkwardly. "In fairness," he said carefully, "this is the first time anyone has said that during one of my presentations." A scholar somewhere in the crowd laughed. Nera looked up at him. "You are loud," she said. Isaac blinked. "I apologize." She shook her head. "Not with voice," she said. "Inside." Isaac thought for a moment. "Ah," he said slowly. "That kind of loud." Queen Sarah studied him carefully. "You will remain in the palace," she said. Isaac blinked again. "Remain?" "Yes," the queen replied calmly. "Until we understand why my daughter, who has not touched another person in 3 years, decided to hug a human scientist in the middle of my court." Isaac sighed. "That seems scientifically reasonable." Nera smiled slightly. "You are staying," she said. Isaac looked around the enormous hall. "I was supposed to present 3 more slides." 3 days later, Isaac Carter had become the most famous human in the Alindrian palace. He had not planned this. The Royal Research Wing looked like something from a dream. Transparent halls curved through floating laboratories. Crystal walls glowed with flowing data. Gravity platforms carried researchers gently between levels. Above everything stretched a glass dome showing the violet sky of Alindra. Isaac stood in the center of it. "Well," he said quietly, "this is absurdly beautiful." His translator drone floated nearby. Observation acknowledged. Small footsteps echoed behind him. Princess Nera had followed him again. Of course she had. She walked through the laboratory with wide, curious eyes. Unlike the silent statue from the court, she now looked alive with curiosity. "What is that?" she asked. Isaac activated a floating display. "This," he said proudly, "is a map of how brains behave when people trust each other." 2 patterns appeared. Blue threads, smooth and organized. Red threads, wild and chaotic. "The blue signals are Alindrian emotional pathways," Isaac explained. "Very stable." Nera nodded. "And the red?" Isaac rubbed his neck. "Human emotions." She stared at the chaotic pattern. "They look broken." "That is also a valid interpretation," Isaac admitted. The princess laughed softly. Researchers nearby froze in shock. No one had heard her laugh in years. "I can hear it," she said. "Hear what?" "Your signals." Isaac folded his arms thoughtfully. "That matches my theory." "What theory?" "That humans broadcast emotions like broken radio transmitters." Nera looked impressed. "You are a broken radio." "Scientifically speaking," Isaac said, "yes." A quiet voice came from the entrance. "Accurate." Queen Sarah's had arrived silently. The entire room became quiet. She studied the projection carefully. "And yet my daughter finds this comforting," she said. Isaac shrugged. "Humans are honest by accident." Nera grabbed his sleeve. "Tell the gravity story." Isaac groaned. "That was not a story." "You floated." The Queen raised an eyebrow. Isaac sighed. "I accidentally activated a gravity training field and drifted into the ceiling." Nera demonstrated by lifting her arms. "You said this is not ideal." Several researchers laughed quietly. Queen Saras watched the interaction. For the first time in years, the laboratory felt alive. Later that week, Isaac sat beside Nera in the palace gardens. Floating terraces surrounded glowing pools of water. Plants shifted color depending on emotions nearby. "Tell me about Earth," Nera said. Isaac smiled. "Well, our plants mostly try to kill us." She leaned forward excitedly. "That sounds better." He laughed. Then she asked another question. "Do humans hug often?" Isaac blinked. "Yes." "How many times per day?" 5, maybe 10. She thought about it seriously. "That seems inefficient." "Why?" "If hugging makes people feel safe, you should do it more." Isaac pointed at her. "That is exactly what humans say." Queen Saras appeared at the garden entrance. She watched them quietly. "You seem happier," she said to her daughter. Nera nodded. "He feels safe." The words landed heavily. The Queen looked at Isaac. "Dr. Carter." "Yes, Your Majesty." "You came here to study emotional recovery." "That was the plan." "And instead," she said softly, "you helped my daughter remember how to laugh." Isaac shrugged awkwardly. "I mostly told bad jokes." Nera nodded proudly. "And floated into ceilings." A few days later, the Hall of Resonance filled again for the diplomatic summit. But the atmosphere felt different. When Nera walked into the chamber beside Isaac, diplomats whispered in curiosity. The Talin ambassador leaned forward. "In our culture," he said, "a royal child forming a bond with an outsider is very significant." Isaac sighed. "Oh, good." Nera tugged his sleeve. "You are my official friend." The translator drone repeated it loudly. Several diplomats burst into laughter. Later, Queen Saras addressed the court. "My daughter withdrew from the world after her father was killed," she said. The hall was silent. "But she chose to trust a stranger." She looked at Isaac. "A human scientist whose emotions are impossible to ignore." Isaac raised one hand. "That remains my leading theory." Nera stepped forward. "He feels safe," she told the court. Then she turned and hugged Isaac again. The entire court froze. Isaac laughed softly and hugged her back. "Well," he said, "at least this part is familiar." Then Nera grabbed her mother's arm. "Humans say families hug." The Queen looked surprised. But after a moment, she laughed. The sound echoed through the chamber. For the first time in years, the Hall of Resonance was filled with joy. Queen Saras turned to Isaac. "Dr. Carter," she said. "Yes, Your Majesty." "You will remain an honored guest of Alindra for as long as you wish." Isaac looked around the hall. The palace no longer felt cold. The court no longer felt intimidating. Everything felt alive. He smiled. "Well," he said, "someone has to continue the hugging research." And the entire court laughed again.